Alpine is still in trouble, and Pierre Gasly might be the next major casualty. Because if his form doesn't end up being more consistent soon, I wouldn't be surprised if Alpine's new boss cuts him loose. Let me make this clear. I've got nothing against Pierre Gasly, but Flavio Briatore, he might, because he is the last of the paddock pirates. Part dealmaker, part dictator. And Alpine is now his ship. So in my mind now, I'm just starting to call him Flavio Briatore, matey! Only with an Italian accent. He is blunt, polarizing, and the complete opposite of every other single team principal who is completely media savvy, and new fans are starting to really see how the old school operated when you could easily just chuck out a driver, put in a new one because they came with some cash. If your value dried up, out you go. Remember 1995 where Brundle and Aguri Suzuki kept changing hands at Ligier due to contractual conveniences? And yes, some people might point to Christian Horner and accuse him of the same thing, but with him, at least he knows how to do it with a smile. He is very, very good at being a spin doctor. Oh, Flavio, no. He'll say what he wants to say and then go boom, right in the feels. Because I think Alpine's dilemma for next year, especially with the drivers, has been exacerbated by the loss of the high-tech operation. Their deal is both financial and performance-based. He's loudly declared Flavio a goal. Win races by 2026, fight for titles by 2027. So say he in the publication Le Mans. Standard talk, sure. But it does echo Renault's old-school ambitions. You know the ones, the 5-year plan, the 100-race plan. Oh, they're back at it again, Renault and Flavio, this time with a 2-year plan. Ooh, very, very spicy. And also a very, very good investor hook, because they're going to be needing some of those, because, yeah, the Dmitry Mazepin thing, the Vladimir Kim thing from High-Tech, Oliver Oakes, no, that's dead in the water. But now it means they're going to be needing somebody to champion their organization. Because Monaco was yet another bad day for the team, right when every other midfield team had something to smile about and show the cameras. Even Sauber looked interesting with Bortoletto's surprise pass and Antonelli, and then subsequent comments which got once again taken out of context by the F1 TV producers. Seriously, that is a real issue and actually has contributed as to why people describe George Russell as a bit of a whinger, but that's for another video. But in the case of Alpine, there was really nothing interesting about them. Nobody is talking about them in a glowing light, and surely that is going to be leaving the Italian team leader that little bit miffed. And it really doesn't help Pierre's case that you get Briatore going out to the media saying, oh, the only good thing about the Monaco weekend was Franco. Because, in a way, he was right. Colapinto, although he wasn't really spectacular, was very, very solid. And for a brief second, it looked like Gasly, when he collided with Tsunoda, was going to be taking Franco out. A real cardinal sin, and the crux of this video would have been even more stark. Franco got to P13, and without anyone really noticing, equaled Jack Doohan's best ever finish in a race. So even though he didn't score points, one of the major requirements of Briatore for Franco, being able to match Jack sort of somewhat justifies the transfer. And, according to Flavio, he did fulfill one of the other major criteria, don't crash. Whereas Pierre, he did crash. And he caught the attention of the FIA for all the wrong reasons for limping back to the pits instead of using an escape road, even though he claimed he had no brakes. And I know you might be viewing this video as incredibly harsh toward Pierre, since he has been the glue that's been keeping Alpine together in recent months. And let's not forget him having a great run of form alongside Esteban Ocon at the back end of 2024. And yes, he did provide them some points in Bahrain to boost their morale somewhat, but you got to admit, considering the pace and potential they had in pre-season testing where people were looking at them and thinking, yeah, they look okay. Well, right now, they're not looking okay. Because that Bahrain performance is the only thing they can actually cling on to. But I'm just starting to think more and more often past comments that Flavio has made regarding Gasly. The one in Drive to Survive that came out. Pierre was vastly underestimated by Briatore, and he really had nothing to smile about. And then all of the rumours that you've been hearing about that Flavio is really fed up with Pierre turning up late. That's why, as a punishment, he had to go do more testing instead of going on his holes. So for the purposes of this video, you really need to take a look at this from the mindset of Flavio Briatore. I know, it's not a popular situation, but Alpine's really not popular at the moment, so we really have to start thinking about it from their point of view, rather than from another team. It's harsh, it's unfair, it's not something I would do. I would be keeping Pierre in with both hands alongside Franco, stability and continuity and all that, but thought experiment here, okay? Yarr, matey! Because we need to remind ourselves of the reason why Renault brought this guy in the first place. He's not just there because he has historically brought Team Enston to glory. He's there to produce not only speed, but also profit. to ensure that every single part of the team is efficient and has the potential to work at optimal efficiency and have scope to grow into the future. Therefore, in some circles, Gasly's trajectory now resembles that of a high-floor, low-ceiling asset. Valuable, but increasingly replaceable in a market chasing upside and brand magnetism. Yes, you can easily counter that he has been the one delivering the vast majority of points that Alpine has accrued in recent times, and he has been in many interviews praising Alpine and saying, oh no, don't worry, I can be really flexible, even though he was quite rigid in his stance of wanting to work for a works team. Especially when you look at Alpine just a couple of years ago, it's a completely different beast to this day. Next year, they're dropping Renault and becoming a customer team. And in Alpine's defense, they have actually been amping up the French connection again, because the suits they're bringing for the Spanish Grand Prix, they do look very snazzy, and they do look very French with the celebration of Alpine's 70th anniversary. It's very nice. It's just a shame that the livery has not gotten the same treatment. Can't we just have the 2021 livery back for a little bit? Come on, BWT, chill. But I do think that this team needs a brand new tack, since I do think their plan for 2026 has somewhat been derailed, so they've got to try and adapt, and I think Gasly knows this too. Because the Frenchman's charm offensive is only amping up and up and up, him hailing his new boss for being willing to make changes if it means benefiting the team. Does he really mean these words, or is this an act of self-preservation to make himself look good in front of the Italian boss? So here are these words for your consideration. Ahem. He's pushing the team, that's Flavio, in a very impressive way, trying to get the max out of any department and really trying hard to put the team in a better place. He comes with a lot of experience, a lot of network, someone that makes changes, and sometimes you've got to be pushed and challenged, and that's what he does all the time. I think he's brought a lot of good stuff to the team. Obviously, it's not a sport where things are going to change over 2 or 3 months, hint, hint. We need a bit of time, but he's clearly pushing everybody in the right direction. Just challenging the process and the way we're doing things and questioning whether we're doing things in the best way possible. I think he's working well with the guys, and I think overall in the background, there's a lot of progress which is being made. Now, that does sound quite glowing, right? But in my mind, that's a little bit too glowing. Publicly aligning himself with the new boss tells us that Pierre knows Briatore now holds the real power at Enston, and at the same time, Gasly repeats that progress won't happen in the 2 or 3 months, a plea for patience that clashes with Briatore's publicly stated demand to win races next year and chase the title after that. Put together, the quote suggests 3 things. That 1, Alpine's culture has completely transformed itself, it's become confrontational and target-driven, really target-driven. B, everyone, including Gasly, is being judged in the short term. And 3, Gasly is trying to therefore buy himself some time, so that means he may continue to be part of this brand new regime. This is somewhat of a call that Colapinto made not that long ago, when he got the call up and that 5-race thing, him saying that 5 races wasn't enough, him citing Carlos Sainz as somebody who needs way more than that to fully adapt to a brand new team. That mercy should be given to them. And you can also sense that Gasly doesn't want a lifeboat, that he doesn't just want to be here to wait around for a better opportunity, that he really wants to be the team's captain for a very long time. He's doing whatever he can, but Flavio is already eyeing who he needs to toss in order to then preserve the team and make sure it's actually something that can be truly competitive again. You know, skate where the puck's going, not where it's been, and Pierre's hoping that he's not part of the past of Alpine and therefore part of the problem of why it hadn't been really competitive, but part of Flavio's solution, that he can easily adapt, evolve, change with the times, really make the most of his potential, now that he will have a more competitive power unit and a team which is quickly evolving and transforming. It's a perfectly valid plan to make sure you can remain within Formula 1, but Gasly has not been providing results since that P7 around Sakhir. That result becoming smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. Again, this may sound harsh to some of you, but that's what Alpine is like right now. It's not straightforward. You can't just shore yourself up there at the moment. It's a team in transition. If results or fresh funding do not appear quickly, the same no-nonsense approach Briatore used to drop Jack could be aimed at Gasly. In contrast, Colapinto seems to be enjoying a rare bit of patience from Flavio. Though told to be fast and crash-free, within 9 days of being confirmed to be placing Doohan, his 5-race deal became practically indefinite. Briatore partaking himself in a little bit of gaslighting. Being asked about the 5-race plan, he then goes to the press, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I never said anything about a 5-race plan," acting like he never said that, even though he only said that barely a week previously. Can you see what we're dealing with here? You can't really trust what he's saying or where he's ultimately going to be headed. Things could easily change on a dime. This flip-flop clashes with Alpine's desire for instant results, and these are results they are not getting, not just from Franco, but also from Gasly. And you can immediately sense that Franco is really, really nervous with his lot in life. Sure, he's got himself right now a contract that is as long as a piece of string, albeit by about 5 years or so, but in the case of Formula One, it's for the rest of the decade. But this is a very different culture in what he was used to when he was within the Williams Racing Academy. It's a really big difference in terms of shift in perception and expectation. James and Flavio, they're two completely different leaders. James would more than happy take in the whole perspective of you, not just what the money you can provide, but you as an overall driver, give you time, merit-base you. Whereas Flavio, he wants things right now, and if he believes in you, you have to deliver. So I really feel for Colapinto right now. Whereas at Williams, it was a case of, well, you're not going to be our driver next year, but for now, just have a little fun, okay? And what really is interesting is because we know that Franco's deal is 5 years long, whereas recently we've been getting 20 XDX and beyond, or multi-year deals, ultimately deliberately keeping things vague, so that means people don't know how long a driver is there for, which means it could be longer, or it could be shorter. It means it's just not set in stone, whereas Franco's, oh, that's definitely set in stone. It's not a one-year deal either, like Jack Doohan's was at the beginning, before the 6-race caveat came in. And Colapinto does offer some upside, whereas Gasly might already be tapped in his 3rd season with the team. Because Franco does bring new sponsors and social media reach. He's young, keen to impress, his backstory incredibly compelling. Him coming from no money, struggling to get noticed in the junior categories, and then he does get recognised, and the plaudits rapidly compounds. So do take note, folks. How many people on the Formula One grid could you easily say came from a life where their family had to struggle to even give their boy a chance to go racing? I think if you look at it very, very carefully, you can count the people who really didn't have much to their name right at the beginning on one hand. Even Piastri, my boy, came from a very, very rich background. So for Colapinto, I am thrilled that all of the hard work and effort and anguish and aggravation that his family had to go through to get him where he is today has paid itself off. But now it's up to him to then go from there and show everybody, the world, his potential, him as a driver. And Flavio believes in him, and Flavio really does have experience. He views Franco as the next Michael, the next Fernando. Being able to equal Doohan's best ever classification in the second bounce is not too bad, but there needs to be more. But it's okay, Briatore has a plan for him. He has been gifted some major shielding, whereas I don't think Gasly's going to be afforded the same treatment. Because he is Alpine's next wunderkind. But anyway, back to Gasly. He is on the back foot. His Imola qualifying was solid and he looked likely for points, but Leclerc's charge and a gravel detour ruined his Sunday. Another missed midfield opportunity. Even though Aston Martin failed to score in Monaco, a solid P6 finish was on the cards before reliability took Alonso out of the picture. In the constructors, Sauber are right behind them, and if the latest technical directive doesn't throw Alpine a bone, and the neon green machine takes a leap forward because of those directives and their major upgrade package for Catalonia, Flavio's team could be the ones holding the wooden spoon here. And I can easily imagine that if Alpine don't get any higher than P9 in the team standings, then Gasly's contract will probably not see the winter. And don't be surprised if Checo's name is on the door before the ink dries with the Cadillac deal. Oh no, Lord, don't bring Checo into this again. My heart can't take it, or I've had enough of it. Hey, it's not me bringing this into the equation. There has been some exploratory discussions with the Mexican driver, both last year and as recently as this year's Miami Grand Prix. Of course, this is at the same time as the more widely known beliefs that Cadillac would eye him up to be their leader going to next year, but it is believed that Sergio has not been exclusively talking to them. And yes, Checo does have something valuable to offer Flavio. It's not about sponsorship money or social media reach within Mexico. Those things are a given, and we've talked about them ad nauseum. No. The thing that really could be of interest to Alpine is the connection that Sergio has to something that really made his name back in the Force India Racing Point days, the understanding of the Mercedes power unit. Perez was the cornerstone of Team Silverstone. Force India and then later Racing Point was the place where the driver forged his reputation as being one of the most dependable midfield drivers out there. The tyre whisperer. Somebody who could easily be tipped to get a cheeky podium every now and again. Him alongside his trusty sidekick Nico Hülkenberg, you could easily see Force India just come out of the blue, out of nowhere, and get 4th place in the Constructors. And you've got to look at the scale of this team before Papa Stroll came in with his huge wadges of cash. Their facilities were very, very primitive and very, very rudimentary, but they were able to make it work. And the fact that Checo could grab podiums, several points finishes, and then capping it off with that win at the Sakir Grand Prix in 2020, he can make do, Checo, with very, very little on a shoestring budget. And a shoestring budget, hey? Oh, that's music to the Italians' ears. And Flavio's been very vocal about how important this change of power supply will be for the team. The Italian fully convinced that the manufacturer's understanding of next year's rules, hopefully emulating what was afforded to Williams and Force India during the first couple of years of the turbo hybrid era. They were right near the top. Could be trust and respect amidst the Mercedes engineers about what Checo can do with that product. And also, Toto has said a fair few times of how important and understanding that Checo has been on making use and getting results with a Mercedes power unit in the back of his car. You recall all of the noise that Toto Wolff was spewing out to the ether at the back end of 2021 when Alex Albon signed the contract with Williams, and then Christian Horner had to back off, and that's why you didn't see the Red Bull logo on Albon's helmet past 2022. But actually, now that I think about it, and in my research for this video, I realized that maybe there was a reason why Toto was so jittery, because of Checo's deal with Red Bull, coming away from a team that had a Mercedes power unit in the back of their car. Wolff commenting that Perez knew all the different engine modes and how the overall Mercedes concept worked, and how it could be interesting input for Honda and their rivals. And yes, it's true to point out that next year's power unit, yes, it keeps the 1.6 litre V6, but it also triples the electrical output whilst dropping the MGUH. So Perez's finer understanding of the Mercedes power unit would be a little bit less relevant. And it has also been a fair few years since he last drove a Mercedes power unit. Since then, before the engine freeze of 2022 to benefit Red Bull powertrains, there has been a little bit in terms of modifications, upgrades and tweaks and what have you. You could easily then point out that, well, if Flavio wants to get the most out of somebody who knows the Mercedes power unit through and through, then why don't they sign Valtteri Bottas? He also probably has had some experience in the simulator as to next year's power unit. So if you put Bottas alongside Colapinto, you'd have yourself a turnkey deal. Somebody who could easily make the most of the power unit and really get some results. But it really depends on what Toto wants to do with Bottas, whether or not he sees true value in that. It's perfectly valid, it's an alternative, it's definitely an option, but then you've also got to look at what Briatore also wants. He does want a driver that can provide value. Bottas doesn't have any really big name sponsors, especially when you compare him to Checo. And yes, Perez's experience may be a little bit antiquated, but it's better than what Pierre has, who has no understanding of how a Mercedes power unit works. Gasly's experience with power units has pretty much been exclusively Honda, save for a few times with Renault in 2017 with Toro Rosso. If Alpine decides that early integration work and extra funding outweigh Perez's age and recent form, his Mercedes experience could tip the balance in his favour and send Gasly packing. Any buyout payment afforded the Frenchman for an early bath could be gifted by Checo's backers to more easily facilitate the move. I know it sounds incredibly wild to some of you, but we've already seen from Flavio he's not afraid to be making some pretty wild calls, so I'm only following by example. But then there's the honest question, well, okay, if Alpine do drop him, then where would Pierre go? Could he easily be then kicked out of Formula 1 entirely? Well, no, not just yet. There are possibly 3 teams that might take him in at short notice. There's Red Bull, Mercedes, and if Checo ultimately turns them down, Cadillac could come a-knocking, especially since they're not really interested in Alex Palou, and Palou's not really interested in them, and then Colton Herta's not really cutting the mustard. There are plenty of options if they want to have somebody who's got experience within Formula 1 and is available. Yes, I know that at the moment George and Kimi are looking likely to be locked in with Mercedes for the next couple of years, but they have not signed the signature yet, so it is still open for discussion. Yes, and I know historically Red Bull and Pierre Gasly, they didn't really see eye to eye. Pierre, aggravated many people within the garage, including Adrian Newey, but that was from back in 2019. Many people have long since left the Milton Keynes building, and he himself, Pierre, has vastly matured, and they are probably going to be wanting somebody who already has some experience in Formula 1, and if Yuki Tsunoda doesn't cut the mustard for next year, because the media are already sharpening their knives regarding him, which I think is incredibly unfair, then maybe Christian Horner might be wanting to look to somebody who has been within the Red Bull wheelhouse, because I don't think Pierre's going to be going back to Faenza, because, you know, if they keep Lawson or put Lindblad in and then Hadjar, then they're solid for the next couple of years. But with Mercedes and Red Bull, these are believable routes, and they are with works operations. And with Cadillac, Pierre can really mold that team around him, 100%, no questions asked. They would be receptive. Pierre's scouts surely must be looking around to try and find their guy a backup plan at least, considering how impulsive Alpine's management are acting at the moment. And yeah, also, in his defense, should he bag some valuable points and get the team back in the hunt for yet another P6 finish in the Constructors, that will help him out tremendously. But to go into next year without any backup plans would be incredibly naive. The same goes for George Russell. And if F1 doors shut and he doesn't have a seat for next year, Gasly could pivot to Alpine's Le Mans hypercar project as a compromise. Speculative, yes, but better than disappearing entirely from global elite motorsport. Yes, it would be an incredible shock move and an absolute upset for all concerned, considering how popular Pierre Gasly is amongst the Formula One fandom. But may I remind you, yet again, Briatore does not care about your feelings. If Pierre's not providing him the value that he needs, he will probably give him the chop and put in somebody that will provide him everything that he wants. In Flavio's eyes, you have to be delivering at least 2 of 3 things: performance, commercial value, and political utility. Let's call this the Briatore triangle. Gasly, he has ticked the performance box intermittently, but his brand pull is limited and he's not part of Flavio's inner circle. Colapinto, relatively unproven on track, but he brings massive social reach, new sponsors, and a compelling underdog story. Plus, he's tied to Briatore with a 5-year contract, so he does fulfill the commercial and political aspect right now, and with Perez, well, as far as I'm concerned, and I think Flavio's concerned, he in theory could tick all 3. He has some experience with the Mercedes power unit, he has immense commercial value in terms of the Mexican market, and he's been talking to many teams. That means he has a good understanding of the market, which could be really valuable. Flavio could say, "Oh, well, they're talking to you like this, well, I'll provide that and more." So he can easily come back with a counteroffer. So if you look at it from that point of view, Pierre looks relatively expendable. Not because he's bad or anything like that, it's just because he doesn't have as much to offer Flavio when compared to Colapinto and Perez. He could be seen as a spare part, and Briatore does not like spare parts, so I reckon if it came to it and he was thinking about dropping Pierre, I reckon he would do it. Because if you think about it, even Bottas has some commercial value and political utility. And if Perez does ultimately get the deal, then I'm pretty sure that his management will do everything they can to facilitate the move to Team Enston, because at the moment, in terms of trying to find results, Alpine do look a little bit more secure than Cadillac, where there are so many unknowns at play at the moment. And going back to hypercars, Mick Schumacher is not somebody I view as a likely replacement of Gasly. He's not what Flavio is looking for. But Cadillac's interest in Schumacher's management branding of the German driver as a blue-collar worker could be a match made in heaven. To find out why I think Mick is back in the room in terms of finding a seat for next year, watch this video next, straight after this one.